All right. Hello, and welcome to the Product Roadmap webinar. My name is Andrew. I head up product at Smartling, and I am joined by Olga Beregovaya, the VP of AI at Smartling, who heads up our AI strategy and research teams. We're excited today to talk to you about things that we're working on for 2025, as well as things coming up in 2026. Every part of your business creates content, whether it's marketing, customer experience, legal, documentation, product, really across the board. And with the rise of AI, the volume of content has exploded. And that means more formats, more audiences, more language, more complication than ever before. But all that content still needs to reach people in a way that feels natural and authentic, and so that your business can reach new audiences and markets. And that's where translation comes in. The challenge isn't just translating faster anymore, it's translating smarter, using AI, automations, and context to deliver more consistent and on-brand translations. And that's where Smartling comes in. Smartling is leading the next wave of translation, transforming how global enterprises translate with AI that's intelligent, controllable, and enterprise-ready. This is the core of our vision. Smartling as your AI translation hub, one secure place that connects your teams, tools, and AI to deliver content faster and better so that you can reach new audiences and grow globally faster. Today, we're going to be talking about the roadmap really in three pillars. First is delivering the best first translation every time. These are all the tools and AI and LLMs and quality assessment tools that go into making sure that you have the best starting translation. Second, we'll talk about accessing Smartling and your content wherever you work, whether that's in a third-party application, in an LLM, in your internal tools, really everywhere that Smartling could be accessed. And third, the things we're doing in the platform to make it more simple and intuitive and a better Smartling experience for all of our users. And I will turn it over to Olga now to talk about our first pillar, delivering the best first translation.
Okay, so delivering the best. So delivering the best first translation, delivering the best first translation basically consists of several parts, and it is really how you define what the best translation is and the constituents. What is the best translation built off? And then also, can you really evaluate and how can you confirm that you are delivering the best translation? So let's look at what we're doing and how we're doing this. So first step in our AI first workflow would be adaptive AI agent. And we know the value of linguistic assets, and we'll be talking about linguistic assets later. Basically, you fetch your old translation memory and your legacy translation, you enhance it by large language model, adapting the new target to the previous target. And then it gives you increased leverage of your translation memory, and obviously gives translators a much better head start because the fuzzy matches that they're working on can be elevated all the way to smart matches. So here we are, step one. We've utilized and made the best of your legacy translation, using them in adaptive and dynamic mode. Then we go over to AI translation. And what is AI translation? That's the translation step where you can have multiple approaches of translating those strings. They can still come from several NMT engines. And the reason for that being that NMT still has its home. And as much as our experiments show that LLMs are catching up and they're catching up, and often they actually tend to beat NMT, they still come at the same level as trained neural machine translation agents. So one thing that we're adding that we did not have before and we're very excited about is where we get the highest results, very comparable to trained machine translation engine, which would be fine-tuned LLM. So LLM fine-tuned on your legacy content with RAG for translation, with retrieval augmented generation for translation. And so the last one, last but not least, is AI post-editing agent. So here you are, you've completed your 2 steps, and now you want to compensate for whatever did not happen in those steps, or whatever does not belong in those steps, where you can adapt the agent to tone of voice, adjust formality for languages where it matters, make sure that your terminology is applied within context and in morphologically accurate manner, not not introducing any kind of grammatical errors and syntactic errors into your sentence. You can inject your style guide preferences. Again, that's something that we're doing dynamically, and we'll speak about it some more. And then you just perform quote unquote smoothing for overall language tone and voice. Now, what's very important, what you see in the bottom of each column, is detecting and mitigating hallucinations. Those of you who work with large language models on a daily basis can see that, even more so in foreign languages, models can dream things up. And it's essential that those dreaming things up instances are caught and mitigated in the workflow. And as you can see, it happens on every step. Yeah. So now let's see, how does translation quality actually improve across engines? And that's based on our latest research, both lab research and also what we see in production in the platform. So here you are, what we would refer untrained or untuned LLM. And that would be just like, hey, generic out of the box LLM, translate A to B without any further instructions. And this is where you still see the highest edit distance. So that's where you see reasonable, but lowest performance. From there, you go into untrained machine translation. And again, untrained machine translation is more predictable. So that's where we'd assume that, okay, untrained machine translation is showing still high edit distance, but you can see that it's already improving. Now, you go untrained model within the context of our AI translation. What does it mean? We use all the steps, apply all the steps that we discussed before, but you don't do anything to the model, and you don't do anything to machine translation or engine, whichever way you want to call it. And this is where we would get the best results. That's our workflow, our AI translation workflow, augmented with custom model, be it neural machine translation, or be it, as I said earlier, fine-tuned LLM with RAG. Now, if you want the ultimate guaranteed human in the loop quality, this is where you see obviously zero edit distance, because you're benchmarking against human translation. So that would be top of the line. That would be the top, what we refer to as AIHT, or AI-based human translation. Next slide, please. Okay, so there we go. We already touched on RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And for those of you who maybe are not familiar with RAG, that's a way of enhancing model output from external sources. Now, the beauty of doing it within the Smartling platform is your linguistic assets, and even more important so, clean linguistic assets, organized and governed linguistic assets, already reside within the platform. So what we can do now, we actually can provide tooling, context-powered prompting, or retrieval augmented generation to deliver the best translation. And basically, you can have LLM reference translation memory examples, glossary terms directly from your glossaries, and automated style guide rules that actually are extracted from your linguistic assets directly. So what you can see now, we can actually offer new prompt management tooling. So we can actually store, edit, archive, and account for your prompts, and prompt templating support, where you can introduce things like if-then clauses. And you can see a couple of screenshots from that environment. So next slide, please. Okay, I touched already on automated style guides. And again, that's something we're very excited about. Those of us who've been in the industry for a long time we have memories, or even now we're probably exposed to often PDFs, 40 pages of different rules, both locale-specific rules and customer-specific rules. What we can do is actually, again, very, very exciting. We can actually take your own translation memories. Why not learn from the source? And we extract rules and extract patterns based on those rules. And then your generated automated style guide is applied to your translation throughout the process. So that's another win, where we learn exactly from equally your lexicon and your stylistic preferences. So next slide, please. Okay. And again, something that we mentioned earlier, okay, you can absolutely deliver best AI translation, but where is the guarantee that you have delivered that best AI translation? And this is where we are introducing linguistic quality assurance, again, AI-based LQA agent. And what it is powerful AI tooling that actually allows you to assess the quality of your AI translation and equally human translation across the board. So again, we're probably no strangers to quote unquote LQA sampling, where you either randomly or through some selection criteria select what content you want to LQA. Here is the opportunity to actually test and LQA all of your content, or whatever, as much of your content as you decide to LQA. So what we do actually right now, where we are in the process, we run LQA in our own production process, and we gather feedback from our linguists, and we also measure the correlation between what our linguists think and what our linguists think and what the model actually think. And now we're analyzing the data, and then obviously none of these approaches are static. What we're doing is we're reinventing the way we think about translation and global content. So our R&D team, our engineering and product team continue iterating on it. Next slide, please.
All right, now we are going to try to show what that looks like. All right, so in talking about let's make sure we can see my screen. Right. In talking about LQA agent, I know we have a mix of audience here as far as Smartling customers and maybe some others who aren't customers yet. LQA agent right now is part of the workflow system, and it is part of the quality evaluation workflow step. And if I go over to the editor, the cat tool, we can see that we have the LQA system here, and it will tell us what the auto LQA system ran on and the notes and errors that it found. So the really important part here is that this isn't just a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether it's good quality or not. We give information around why there is a problem, or if there is a problem, why there is a problem with the translation and the severity of that problem. Is it a minor problem based on kind of the setup and criteria to fit minor or major, or is it a major problem? And then suggest different resolution options for it. So this is a really important aspect to our LQA agent. It's more than just defining red light, green light, thumbs up, thumbs down, good, bad for a translation. And as Olga said, our research and product teams are still working on evaluating the data and making sure that we have the confidence that we want in order to get it out to customers. We have a couple customers in beta right now with it, and we will be looking to bring it to, we'll be looking to bring it to customers coming soon. And let me go back to the presentation. So look for more information coming up probably towards the end of the year on LQA agent. This is a major first step in getting this automated quality system in place. All right, let's talk about a few other things. We did make an update to the glossary system. And this is first to be able to allow a workflow to be able to allow glossary suggestions in the platform. So right now, linguists can suggest a glossary, and it can go into a glossary to be either approved or deleted, and it will come in as suggested. And that's important so that a new glossary term doesn't automatically go into the system, doesn't go automatically into kind of the glossary replacement system, or go into some of the quality checks. You want to make sure that you have that workflow in place to approve or deny, delete a glossary term. And this also sets us up having this workflow to be able to automatically harvest glossary terms and put them into a suggested state for the customer to review. We also made available recently the ability to save AI translations into translation memory. And this separates the human validated translations from translations that have been created with AIT, which is our AI translation offering, or coming up for however the translations were generated with machine translation or a large language model. And in the platform, this creates really a separate database of stored translations so that you can leverage those translations in the future and get cost savings as well as consistency for future translations based on all of the translations that happen through AIT, MT, or an LLM. And we also continue to just offer new LLM providers and MT providers. Google has some new offerings out that we have integrated with, and those are now available for customers. And then we also continue to look at third-party providers that can be available on the platform. And these are all available for customers to use right now. All right, and in looking at what's coming up in AI translation and all of these AI tools, Olga talked about the prompt writing and using RAG, and RAG again is being able to use all the things that exist in Smartling and be able to use those directly in a prompt. And Olga mentioned the translation memory, so existing translations, glossary terms, as well as style guide, and we'll be adding in things like string instructions, and maybe there's job information and character counts, and all of those can be used when writing a translation prompt. And right now, the prompt tooling system is built to generate a translation, so create a translation to translation step, but then we'll also be bringing that prompt writing to post-translation steps, so being able to write your own prompts to augment a translation further down in the process, or assess a translation, even writing your own quality assessment prompt, and really being the home for how your organization can use AI and LLMs in this translation process. Second, we'll be looking at how we can fine-tune LLMs in the platform. We currently have an interface and an experience where you can kind of self-service and single-click to train machine translation engines, such as Google AutoML. And that will be extended to be able to fine-tune LLMs. And then we're also looking at different ways to bring AI to the CAT tool and for linguist quality of life. So can linguists write their own prompts to change translations, or use different assets or different tools to make their work easier and better in the platform? So a lot of exciting things coming up in the AI translation space coming up in 2026, but also a lot of exciting things coming up even just for the rest of this year. All right, let's talk about how you're accessing Smartling and your content. We think it's important that Smartling can be really available wherever you and your organization are working. We hear a lot from customers that they have a lot of kind of big organizations and disparate teams all over the place, and you want to make sure that that people are, if they're getting a translation, that they're getting translations that are on brand and adhering to your style guide and brand guidelines and glossary terminology, and reusing existing translations, and not just going to an LLM or ChatGPT or whatever it might be to get a translation. You want to make sure that even if the translations are not going through maybe a localization team or even the product team or engineering team directly, that you can still make sure that you have translations that are on brand for your organization. A couple months ago, we released what is called MCP Server. And MCP Server, it's kind of a technical term, but it is really a framework, and it was developed by Anthropic, I think, and released last November, maybe about a year ago. And then in May, it really started to pick up steam and get a lot of attention as a framework and the ability to connect all these third-party tools and all these different applications into different LLMs and AI tools. And that is something that Smartling has as well. So I'm going to also do another demo if I can. Let's show what this looks like. So I'm going to show MCP Server. You can see my screen now. So this is in Visual Studio Code, and this is just a code IDE for developers, but it's connected to the Smartling MCP server. And you can imagine and I have a sample piece of text here. This is a test for a webinar that's happening now. And basically, just as you're thinking about writing a prompt for ChatGPT or something, you're saying, translate this text into French and German and give it back to me, basically. And this allows you to say, really write these prompts, but have it interact with Smartling. So translate this text using Smartling into these languages, translate this text using Smartling and this particular glossary, and give me the translations back for it. So it's really a way to interact with Smartling, but not in the Smartling platform itself. And in this case, it was just a very simple example, but it does give us the translation back, and it's interacting with Smartling. And you can imagine how this could also be applied in like ChatGPT or other AI tools. All right, let's go back. That is Smartling MCP server, and we have a lot of really great information on our help site about Smartling MCP server, and you'll hear more about in 2026 about how we're going to make sure that Smartling can be available wherever you and your organization are working. A few weeks ago, we also released webhooks. These are really for developers to build deeper integrations into the platform to be able to get immediate event information out of Smartling. So if a job completes or a job is created or a file is complete, all these different things can now send events out to third-party applications that can then be acted on by those third-party applications. Coming up in 2026, we're also going to be focusing on a new key value management system. So being able to manage translations by key, keeping translations really intact for keys, even if the source string changes. And there's some really important distinctions there as far as how translations are managed in kind of a key-based system versus others. We have some tooling and things in place for that now, but we're going to be formalizing that a bit more in 2026. And talking about connectors, we're always building new connectors and updating our existing connectors. We recently made, I believe last week, we announced our integration to Salesforce Service Cloud. It supports cases and live chat. We've made some updates to Google Drive to support the Smartling Excel template. And we also announced our Intercom integration to support the Help Center knowledge base product of Intercom. We also announced our Zapier integration, and this is really, if you're familiar with Zapier, it's really an orchestration system that lets you connect a bunch of third-party applications together. And we have a lot of different triggers and actions as part of Zapier, and it lets you can imagine connecting Smartling to Jira, for example, or Smartling to Monday.com as a new job is created. Create an item in Monday, create an item in Jira, create an item in Asana, whatever it might be, being able to use Zapier as kind of that middle ground orchestration system. So if your organization is already using Zapier, look up the Smartling offering in Zapier. Coming up in November, we have a bunch of important updates for Braze, for email templates. We have automation rules coming up for Salesforce Cloud. And we also have a lot of new things coming up for Figma. We've had a lot of good feedback on our Figma integration. We have some performance updates to make sure it can run quickly. And then a really interesting update to be able to select certain parts of content and send that out for translation rather than sending an entire Figma design. So look for some important updates to Figma coming up soon. And that was a lot of great feedback from customers on some things that they would like to see, and we're happy we can make those available in the plugin. Coming up for 2026, we're also going to be looking at making instant translation available. So rather than having to create a job, and even if it's the translations coming from MT or an LLM, kind of skip the whole job process and just get an instant translation directly in the design plugins. We'll also have an offering for SAP Commerce, and we'll also be having new integrations for Jira, Slack, and Teams. And this is really focused on updates for jobs. So if a job is created, post the information to Slack, post the information to Jira, post the information to Teams, kind of like I was just mentioning for Zapier, except go directly from the Smartling platform to these different applications. And for Jira and Slack, we already have integrations to help manage issues. So we'll be expanding that tool set to make updates for jobs. So a lot of exciting things coming up for connectors. If you're a customer, be sure to let us know the things that you would like to see on third-party platforms you'd like us to build integrations for. And these are probably coming up for the first part of the year. So let us know the things that you would like to see, and we will make sure that we can support those. And then really things that we're thinking about for 2026 is how you can manage and govern all of this data in the platform. As we talked about a few minutes ago, for Smartling being kind of the central place to manage all of your AI tools and all of your LLMs, your prompts, your testing of prompts, all the quality data. We also want to make sure that we're that central place to manage all of your linguistic assets. So all of the translation memory, the translation database, the style guide, the glossary terminology, all of that information can be stored in Smartling and then reused in many other places, whether you're training your own MT engines or fine-tuning your own LLMs. Being able to use these assets that are stored in Smartling and be able to use them outside of the platform. And as we think about some of the actual functionality that might come along with that, thinking about how glossary terms and translations can remain consistent. You have this huge database of translations that you've been working on for years and across many different languages, but your terminology changes over time. Your brand and style guide changes over time. So as you make changes to glossary, make sure we can update the translations that are already in the platform. You want to reuse translations and leverage translations that are up to date with your current terminology. And then also being able to just mine for glossary terms as new content is coming into the system, and suggest those glossary terms to you. And then also looking at how quality checks can be run across more content rather than maybe directly in the CAT tool or in the workflow, being able to run it across all content in the platform. And it's really important, we think it's really important to make sure that as all of this content comes into the platform, that we're still maintaining that quality over time. And we think about all the content our customers put in, and really a lot of it is kind of every piece of content that gets created in an organization, it really comes into the platform, and we're kind of that central storage place for all this information, all this language data from your organization. And also we'll be looking at expanding content support. So enhanced tooling for transcription, subtitling, video, audio support, improved context for InDesign and other design tools. And another major component that we're really looking at is how we can connect design to actual file content. This has been a request from customers, and it can be pretty tricky to think about content that is getting written and managed in Figma or InDesign, but ultimately those designs will turn into some sort of application or mobile app or a website or something, and that content will need to get extracted and put in resource files and kind of all of that technical part that happens to turn a design into a real life application or website. And we want to make sure that we can make that process as easy as possible. And then also looking at how we can handle images and create multilingual images directly in the platform. So a lot of exciting things coming up on the content front as well. All right, and then let's also talk about our third pillar for giving a simpler, more intuitive Smartling experience. We recently released a new and improved AI hub, and this is really just centralizing all of the AI tools and MT tools and settings and configurations and reports into one central area in the platform. And a lot of the things Olga talked about for the prompt tooling with RAG and the LQA agent, all of that will be added in here and managed directly in the AI hub. So look for more updates, more enhancements to AI hub coming up soon. We've also been working on the people management, and we've had a couple releases for this already, and we continue to make updates for it. We'll have a few more updates in November and also out through the end of the year. The next piece that we're working on is the workflow assignments, so making it easier for you to manage different assignments in the platform, as well as for third-party vendors to manage their users in the platform and manage what languages and workflow steps and things that those users have access to. So really trying to make this as easy to use as possible. Many of our customers use our global delivery network. The GDN is a live platform that delivers websites on behalf of our customers, and we'll be offering a new tool to monitor the status of GDN sites. So that's looking at the uptime and real-time visibility, if there's any quality, if there's any security problems, anything that might come up with making sure that these websites are online and responsive. So look for this coming up in early 2026. And we'll also be offering in early 2026 some new tools to manage files as well as directives. For those who are in the Smartling platform, directives are really a powerful way to control how content gets parsed and placeholders, kind of all the different things that help you control how your content comes out of the different file types that you might have. And we'll make it easier to manage those directives and create different templates and test and be able to search and find all the different things in files and directives. So look for some new updates to files and directives management as well. This has been one that's been requested by customers for a while, and we're excited to get to this in early 2026. And also look for just quite a few updates coming out to just the overall experience. You'll see quite a few changes coming up over the next several months. So our roadmap pillars, delivering the best first translation every time. Olga talked a lot about the iterations that we do on AIT and our AIHT offerings, trying to make sure that we're delivering the best first translation every time with AI smoothing and style guide rules, and then also making sure that you have the tools to build and get the best first translation. So prompt writing with RAG, automated style guide, and then also being able to assess the quality of those translations. So the LQA agent is the exciting component that will allow us to assess the translations really across the entire and across all of your content in the platform. I also talked about how you can access Smartling and your content wherever you are and wherever you work, making sure that Smartling is accessible in third-party applications, in LLMs, your own internal AI tooling, really wherever you and your organization are working, making sure Smartling is accessible in those platforms. And finally, giving you a simpler and more intuitive Smartling experience, from people management and workflow management and managing all the AI settings and configurations, all the things that go into making sure that the platform is up to date and modern and intuitive for our users. So there's a lot of exciting things coming up, even just in the next month and a half, and a lot of exciting things coming up in 2026. So tell us what you think. Let us know if there's things you would like to see, and if you have any questions. We're excited about what's coming up for translation and for the Smartling platform and for all the great outcomes for our customers. And I believe we might have time for some questions. Let's see. All right, how do we access the questions?
I think I see two questions, Stephanie, for myself, right? And probably there are plenty of questions for Andrew. So
Yep.
maybe, yeah, go ahead. Andrew, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead then. So question one for me is, in step 2 of the AI workflow, who evaluates and how is the quality evaluated? So maybe we can go back there, Andrew. That would be the AI workflow where we presented our iterations. So it's a little bit more visible. That would be, yeah, you almost had it. No, just one of the opening slides where we go through. Yep. Okay. So when we go to AI translation, as you can see, strings are translated by multiple models, quality is evaluated, and highest quality translation is selected. So this is where you actually do not have a human in the picture. This is where you have machine learning algorithms selecting the best translation. And interestingly, trained engines and fine-tuned models are equal contestants. And sometimes you would see that a generic model for whatever the colloquial sentence there is can actually be a winner. So that's basically that's an ML process. that's I hope that answers your question, and let me know if more details are needed. I'll be happy to answer later. And again, very important at that stage, hallucinations are detected. So again, that's something that contributes to the best translation being furnished. Okay, in reimagining translation workflows, is there flexibility to use our own LLM, and can we use one or two of the steps, or do we always need to use step 3? Andrew, I'll defer to you on the flexibility of using our own LLM, because I know that there is flexibility there for certain use cases, but I'm just not sure if that's across the board. So maybe you could take this one.
Yeah, so there's really kind of two components to this. If you want to use your own LLM, and again, I guess there's some different options in what we mean by your own LLM. If it is your own LLM that maybe is at Google or OpenAI or Amazon or something like that, you can use your own key and put that directly in the platform. And that would really be kind of the first step of the AI translation. And then after that, we have what we call our AI toolkit, where then you can then apply some of our different AI functionality to whatever was generated in the AI translation step. So you can really kind of combine them together if you want, or you can just have your own LLM generate a translation and just have it go through the workflow and as is. So there's really some different options as to how you might want to use your own LLM, but it can certainly be done in the platform. We also there's some documentation on our help site also to connect. If you're hosting your own LLM, you can also host your own LLM, and we can connect to it and use that as a translation provider. So there's a couple different options of how you may want to integrate your own LLM into the platform. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think I'll add to this, and this is exactly where RAG and prompting come into play, because this is where you have the flexibility of actually making decisions on how you want your LLM to translate. So the two of them would be connected directly. The other question would be, can we use one or two of these steps, or do we need to use all three? I mean, that would be, if you only want to use machine translation, then obviously, or automated translation, obviously you still have this option within the platform, but the AIT workflow, the highest recommendation is use all of the pieces of AIT workflow, because step 3 is actually where most optimization and most improvements are happening. So again, Andrew, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I think that probably covers it. But there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of mix and match generating a translation and then applying some of the other AI tooling on top of an existing translation.
Let me see. Can you go into more detail how the AI catches hallucinations? That one is actually very interesting. Right now, we basically are using semantic similarity tooling. So you basically see how far, and we're using embedding. So basically you see how far translation is from the source. And this is your best and easiest way of catching hallucinations. And it's also the least expensive way, right? Because you don't need to tap into the models. So that's you detect, okay, the meaning has completely deviated, and you have certain index of how much the meaning has deviated. And that's your first signal on that the model is hallucinating. Again, nothing is static. And what's also work in progress is how much we can augment it by more factual checking and more locale relevance checking. And that's definitely something we're looking at into in 2026. So looks like was answered. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's really a lot of, as we think about how customers are using AI and LLMs and all these different tools, and like the hallucination detection is a great example. And a lot of people sometimes think they want to go directly to an LLM, or their users want to go directly to an LLM. But when you have new models that are released every day, and some are deprecated every day, and you don't know how much they're going to hallucinate, Olga and her team really do all this research kind of constantly to make sure that the different models are evaluated for consistency and confidence in translation. How much do they hallucinate? Can we catch those hallucinations in the platform? Are there fallback mechanisms if we find a hallucination? So even though there are all these LLMs and AI tools and things, we think it's still important that we can provide all these extra kind of functionality on top of the AI and LLM tools.
Maybe I could add to this. I mean, if we think about it, and if you think how uneven the distribution of training or training data is, I mean, the initial model training data is across different languages, you would see obviously the potential for the engines to hallucinate more in languages other than English. And the less resourced the language is, the higher the potential for hallucinations is, which is why it's also essential that you do have this step as a part of your translation pipeline, right? Just because we operate more often than not, we have English as a source and we operate in languages other than English.
Yep. Yeah, and I saw a question. Right, for LQA, is it available when using other LSPs? Would it be possible to use the LQ agent on its own or as part of a complete AI workflow? Yeah, so the great thing about this LQA agent is that it can really kind of assess the quality of anything, and whoever's involved in the process, it could assess whether it's a human workflow with humans involved, whether the translation was generated by AI or MT, or you have 20 steps, you have internal people reviewing content, you have third parties, or you're using Smartling. There's really the flexibility to use it however and wherever you would want. And it's kind of disconnected from how that translation is originally generated and is really used on its as an independent mechanism to assess the quality.
Maybe I can add to this that we do have MQM schema, as you can see in this slide. So obviously, since MQM schema was designed, right, multidimensional quality metric was designed to cater to risk tolerance of your content, and you can play with weights and you can play with severity levels. So to Andrew's point, that can equally be applied across the board because it was designed as being equally applicable to different translation scenarios. Now, the beauty of it is also that you can tweak your MQM schema and severities depending on the sensitivity of your content to particular errors. And what would be critical for certain content can be major or if not minor for more forgiving content types. So that's, again, something that you can do within the platform, and we find it very powerful.
Yep. Yeah, and I saw a couple comments for, I think it was down here on the key value system. So why would you want to keep a translation even if the source has changed? And yeah, there's a lot of different, and this didn't go into detail on this too much right here, but it is something that we would look at for maybe if the source has changed just a little bit, or like some sort of like estimation as to if the source has changed too much, or was it just someone said turned hi into hello or added a period or something like that. And this system will be optional, of course, but we know it is something that does resonate with developers, and I think it is something that they see it as the translation just stays in place and they can continue their application and development even while maybe the translations maybe don't need to change too much. But it will be optional. And as we get further into the development and closer to the release, we'll have more use case information for that for people. Let's see.
There is, Andrew, a question that I think maybe we can mix and match.
Yep, go ahead.
I'll work with Microsoft Translator, and then I'll leave the second half to you. So do you also work with Microsoft Translator? Our pool of NMT engines has not changed. So you equally, just like you could a year ago, you equally can access Microsoft Translator. You can access Lilt, you can access Amazon Translate, two flavors of Google Translate, to Andrew's point, because now Google Translate equally comes as an older NMT model and as an LLM. What's interesting about Microsoft Translator, and we see that that's happening across the board, Microsoft Translator quality has also gone up. So we see that Microsoft Translator started winning over other static translation providers. Again, in untrained, uncustomized scenario, if you compare various generic engines. But is it available? Yes, most definitely available. So Andrew, back to you for the second part of the question.
Yeah, and I think the second part of the question, do you have a connector for translate messages on Slack? So that will be in our upcoming Slack update to be able to get a translation directly from Slack. Yep, so look for that coming up very soon. Let's see, another question. Why would you want to save AI translations in a separate TM? Yeah, that's a great question. So let's see, where was that slide? Right. So right now there is still right now, I would say, and Olga briefly touched on this, there is a quality difference between maybe translations that came directly from an AI system without any human involved versus something that had a human review the translation. So rather than mixing all of the content that maybe came from an LLM or an MT system or something like that, and mixing it in with content that has been human validated and annotated, and the humans have said this is really good, we're keeping them separate. But the flexibility of this system is that although they're separate, they can be used at the same time and leveraged just as you would human translation. So it's really up to you how you might want to use that content. But yeah, the thinking was that we want to, at least for now, keep these systems separate and these translations separate. Let's see, are you looking to build an AI into translation parts such as Smartling, such as the reporting options? Yeah, we're really looking across the board at where AI can enhance the user experience and provide a better outcome for customers. And there's certainly things that we're looking at for like being able to kind of just write your own prompt and generate a report or something kind of across all the data that's stored on the platform. So there's still some research and things that are going on to that, and it can get somewhat complicated in some of in how things might be named, and you have to define all this stuff. But like, it is certainly something that we are looking at and how we can apply AI to different parts of the platform rather than just maybe the translation workflow. That's a great question, and if you have ideas on how you think that would work, please reach out. We'd love to hear them. Let's see, when MTA unedited translations are leveraged, how do translators know that these have not been reviewed by humans? That's a great question, and I actually need to go back and look to see how that is, how that's noted in the platform. The linguist will see that it came from that it was leveraged from a particular TM. I can't remember off the top of my head if it is actually labeled if that it came from an AI or a computer generated TM. That's a great point, and that is something that we'll look into after the call. Let's see. Can we have more than one linguist working the same job simultaneously? You can certainly have more than one linguist working on the same job simultaneously. I think maybe more specifically, you're probably thinking about working on the same job, same language, same set of content. And yes, that is possible. And it really depends on how you might want your linguist to work in the platform, whether they are claiming content for themselves, or whether it's getting assigned to them, or maybe whether it's more open where anyone can just come and get content to work on. But there are some options there in how you may want linguists to work in the platform. Let's see. Any updates on customizing user access profiles? Yeah, so this is something that we are kind of constantly looking at, and there will be some updates in 2026 for this. Probably not in the early part of the year, but it is something that we're looking at. And if you have feedback on the types of customization that you would like to see, please pass that on. There's a lot of different options in how someone may want to configure a profile. And yeah, we'd like to hear your feedback on what you would like to see there. Let's see.
Let me take, I think this one probably would be more for me. Does the LQA agent consider image context? Not at the moment, but we're working, and that's one of the blogs, Andrew touched on it, for 26. We're working on generally taking more image context into consideration, equally as a part of RAG on different steps, retrieval augmented generation, to inform the model, but also to inform the model on the LQA step. But I absolutely on the LQA agent step, but I think we both agree that it's very relevant and would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question and idea and concept. And when we think about our customers who have so much context in the platform, we have the original Figma files and the original InDesign files, and we have the layout of the web page, and we have the PDFs of something. And how can that be used to maybe influence the quality assessment or the translation that gets generated? As you can imagine, it probably gets pretty complicated, but those are certainly research topics that we have, and seeing how we can reuse all of these different things in the platform. As Olga said, prompt writing with RAG, how can we make context available in prompts as well? Let's see, anything else?
There seems to be one more. How is the AI review workflow step similar, related to, or different from the AI toolkit? It is not different. It is just basically a different way of accessing it. So the AI review step would actually be the same. The AI post, if I understand AI review step being AI post editing step, right? Unless it is the AI LQA. But yeah, I mean, long and short, there is no difference. That functionality is the same, right? You can work with us throughout the workflow, or you can expose the functionality to your third-party LSPs. Again, Andrew, I don't know if you want to help me here and add to that.
That sounds right.
There's no difference.
Yeah, I saw one question somewhere about ICU message format 2.0 support. Yeah, that is also coming up in early 2026, as well as some expanded support of plural statements in ICU message format. So look for that coming up. We'll have more information, and that'll go out to customers probably in early January or so for support for ICU message format. All right. Let's see. Last question. Oh, I think I just covered that. Nice. I think we got through all of the questions. Awesome. Sounds good. So thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate you being here. We have a lot of exciting things coming up for the rest of the year and coming up into 2026. Look for more information from your CSMs if you're a Smartling customer, and on Smartling website if you're not. And please give us your feedback when you have a chance. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.